would be small, so it's impossible to apply the CDN, the VCS, or national carbon standard. But for the buyer, the only thing they care about is the carbon credit is real or not. So maybe we can use a simplified way, local standard, as local government provide some certificate to the company. And for this way, we think we can make a developed country more willing to offset their CO2 emission. With our platform, we can gradually let more region, no matter for company or for individual, join with us in different regions and combine all these strengths into a global climate action and to fulfill the gap of emission gap. Our project started in 2017. Right now, last January, our Eco2 cryptocurrency online for exchange, but we don't do ICO policy. We don't hope people in the beginning they use this kind of making money idea to buy our token. We hope share this with tokenized climate action. And our platform will be ready in next month for environmental testing. And we want to go to public on August. Later I will show you. And more blockchain feature we want to add in. Gradually we will put all transaction data, personal CO2 emission, and carbon neutral action put into the blockchain. And we will also provide multi-language maybe for French people, maybe for Japanese people, Korea, India. We want to let more people who have demand to do their regional carbon neutralization, and they can have an easier interface to do it. But right now, in the calculation, we think that most of people use English. It's difficult, very difficult for Chinese people. So we hope we can do something localized. We also have booths in the marketplace, and if you want to ask some question later after the workshop, we also keep some communicate. And right now I want to show some pages. No,
we don't have time. Sorry.
Okay,
yeah.
so we can continue our panel discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Neil, for this example of how blockchain can actually enable cross-border collaboration and enable the interaction of China with the developing world. Please join me for the panel, and please stick around a little bit longer. We started a bit later, but we'll promise that we will let you go for the lunch soon. So I would like to open this discussion with a bit of a provocative question to Rachel, which is that our system is decentralized and is owned by the parties to the Paris Agreement, but who owns the warehouse?
So that's a good question, and it's one that's been asked before. So we're currently developing a proof of concept, and it is funded by our program for 3 years. But we don't envision that this would be something that could be owned or run by World Bank, because it's just not our mandate. And we hope that service providers eventually could then build such a system. And I think that goes with a lot of these sort of elements within our program as well. I talked about the mitigation action assessment protocol. Yes, we developed that in collaboration with lots of different partners, but now that's also being taken on by the DOEs, those that were the independent entities from CDM. And I think eventually when this is a robust enough proof of concept, we also hope that existing service providers will also see the benefit in doing this. And at the moment, we're also trying to think through what is a self-sustaining business model that a private sector entity could use for this warehouse as well.
Great. Are there any questions, comments from the audience?
My name is Venkatraman. I'm representing Semcorp. See, a few questions I have. First is there will be cost to do this blockchaining. Okay, I represented IPP, suppose I have some credits. There will be some cost involved to do this blockchaining and what it will be. Second, what I understand from blockchain is there will be continuous power requirement to maintain this blockchain certificates. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how much power will be required and whether doing this will really help us? Because power is one of the concerns, because that again it will emit some gases if it's not a renewable power. So these are the two specific questions.
So in terms of cost, the development of blockchain is somewhat cheap because we, and as I understand the World Bank as well, is building on the Ethereum protocol, which is a protocol that is developed by developers, and we don't have to pay for it. We can just take it and adopt it towards what we're doing. It is also a lot cheaper to maintain, as I said, because we're using a different consensus mechanism. We are not burning any energy through it. It's, in terms of maintenance, it's quite similar to a database structure. I mean, it's a little bit more, but it's in the same ballpark, whereas Bitcoin is consuming energy in the realm of nation states. So it is not really a cost that is there. And national parties have to run nodes or database systems anyways. So linking that to blockchain is not causing really any substantial additional expenses. But I think it's maybe also interesting to forward this question to Neo, as you have been developing a token yourself and are familiar with more cost dimensions.
If you use the current standard like Ethereum or other related to similar blockchain technology, yes, like Marco say, it's very cheap, and you can just use their network. And even if you want to learn by yourself, yes, I learned it by my own on internet, and I try my best to do some coding to writing a smart contract. And the good thing is once you make a smart contract, nobody can modify it. And everyone on the chain, they can see your source code. So let everyone trust it. And the data will not store it in your own server. It will store it on the blockchain network. So you don't need to pay for the servers. It's kind of a high cost for a startup. So, but if you want to develop your own blockchain technology, will always spend a lot of money. But right now, in the beginning, I suggest you can use other people's technology.
Sorry, just one last thing to add on the cost, and that's something we've been thinking through a lot, especially if we're working with our client countries. And yes, there are different types of blockchain technologies, and each one has different costing to it. For us, as we start off with this proof of concept, we have considered more vanilla type of gold standard blockchain like Ethereum. And yes, that is more expensive. But then that's why when I mentioned in my slide is we need to pick out the most important information to then be hashed in the blockchain. Like not every single information should be stored in the blockchain. Only the ones that you think has to be very securely transacted should be stored there. So that depends on which type of blockchain technology it is. So Bitcoin, for example, uses much more energy intensive because of the way it proofs. But then there's other like proof of stake, proof of authority that we were talking about. So different consensus mechanisms uses different energy power storage as well.
And maybe to add to that again, Bitcoin, no one is building on Bitcoin at this moment for this kind of purpose. I mean, we have been discussing Ethereum and Hyperledger Fabric. There are the two blockchains that are most suitable for this kind of interaction because they enable smart contracts, so that you can automate a lot of the process steps. That's also what you want to do in order to gain efficiency gains and so on. So Bitcoin is really a very inefficient system in a way because it has to be very secure, but our systems are also more secure than conventional databases, but they don't have to be the most secure network in the world, and that enables us to use different consensus mechanisms, which again don't use a lot more energy than a conventional database system. Maybe a little bit more, but it's negligible actually. Okay, are there more questions?
Thank you very much. My name is Lars Tveda, I'm with APX. We're a technology company, and we're always trying to assess what's the best way to resolve different challenges, what technology should we use, and so forth, and see great potential for blockchain, specifically around MRV. But I also admit I raised my hand. I was somewhat skeptical about some of the items discussed here. Well, blockchain is really the best solution. I think, Mr. Lin, you showed some very cool applications and ways that you're having folks be able to interact in the Chinese market. I don't think some of that stuff really requires blockchain. That can be done with other technologies, whether around certificate or access to the market. Rachel, I think you presented, some of the things you said is blockchain is really expensive. The weakest link can kind of ruin the safety and security of it. And I think, Marco, you mentioned there's 197 nodes, one for each country. You talked about the tokens, which to me looks very much like a certificate from Vera, or from Gold Standard, or from CER. I'm not sure I see something new. The dashboard, I think you mentioned it looks like a registry. So my question is, I'm still a bit skeptical. I wasn't convinced. And so where are the advantages? Are you just complicating a market that's already complicated? Or are you actually simplifying things? Are you saving money? Where is the problem that's being solved, and where is the advantage from blockchain? I'm very open to being convinced. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is kind of complicated, but in my opinion, I think when we started doing the BCS, Forest Carbon Program, since 2016, we found out one thing. Two major problems we need to conquer. One is where is the fund? Okay, the other is where is our customer? So we think with the blockchain right now, so many money in the cryptocurrency market, we want to use the token to attract more investment from the cryptocurrency market. So right now it sounds like complicated because these two markets are really complicated. But we hope to make some connection, and then that kind of money can influence into the carbon market. But let everybody use the token to trade the carbon credit. They can get benefit by price up. It's very simple. And the other thing is demand. In many countries, it's really hard to sell the carbon credit. We sell the carbon market, but the market base is very, very small in voluntary carbon market. So we need to try to wait to expand the market base. And the best way to expand market base, I think, is make the trade center, like Amazon, like Taobao, like eBay. So we think that maybe works. At least probably not many people will use cryptocurrency to trade the carbon credit yet, but at least they can see where is the credit located. So they can know, okay, maybe I can contact this company to buy. At least I provide a platform to let everybody put their product on it. So we hope we use this way, and also the cryptocurrency money can flow into the whole world, because now in many developed countries they have a foreign currency exchange control. So for that kind of thing, we can avoid some regulation, yes, in the beginning, but we hope that we can let the liquidity of the carbon credit become bigger and stronger.
Oh yeah, so I do have those slides. But so I think, well, first of all, I think we should say that we have these parallel streams, right? We have the design phase of the climate warehouse, but in parallel, we're working with the Technology and Innovation Lab to explore different usage of technologies like blockchain. But we also recognize that it's still early stages, and we still need to continue to develop this warehouse, but keeping in mind, like, what are the opportunities? So yes, like, we don't have all the answers, and we're definitely not saying that blockchain definitely is the answer. I have that whole list of challenges that we still need to think through. But I think for me, I do think it's worth continuing to explore it, mainly because of the use case itself. Because I think there's so many blockchain applications, but for bottom-up climate markets, there is that potential, because imagine like 50 countries trying to link their registry systems and having a central system, like say the ITL, but it could get very complicated, because all these systems look so different, and we're not just talking about carbon markets, right? Like potentially renewable energy certificate markets could also generate mitigation outcomes. How do you link these systems? So the point with the warehouse is that we're saying there's no central point of failure. It's each participant could have their node, and then that whatever information could be stored there. And another key point is that we're not saying it's one or the other. You know, like with this architecture, we're saying that it has some blockchain elements that could play a role, but actually a lot of it is not within blockchain. And also, I think that a lot of the discussion has been around blockchain, but there's so many other technologies out there. And I think, as Marco mentioned, this is a market that would be post-2020, so we need to make sure we're not locking into existing technologies and we keep our eyes open and keep testing and seeing, you know, how can we make sure we're as forward-looking and flexible as possible.
Okay, so my biggest argument for blockchain, and I agree with what Rachel said, I think it is a promising use case. I'm not 100% convinced either, and there are challenges to be resolved also on regulatory and political dimensions, and it's very important to address them. So why I think blockchain is really good for the use case of Article 6 and 6.2 compared to other carbon markets is because they are bottom-up and decentralized systems. At the moment in Kyoto, you have the UNFCCC registry, and everything is stored there in this black hole, and then they will put the information out there. But if you want to synchronize 50 or 200 national registries, it's important to have an efficient process layer, and that's really where I see a blockchain application as promising. You were mentioning the ITMO dashboard. That wouldn't be based on a blockchain or anything. That would be just an interface, a website, basically. And also the national carbon accounts at the moment would be most likely conventional database systems. So it wouldn't change the process on how we get data on the blockchain right now. So you would have national databases where all the emission data is stored, and that would be using the same procedures as they are at the moment. The promise of the future is to be able to change that, and I think that is where the real power of blockchain can come in as a technology platform. So, and I have been suggestions as well with the gold standard and so on, and everyone is speaking about this MRV use case. I see that as a very powerful but very abstract or not so tangible approach yet, because I think there is still a lot of technical difficulties with it. I mean, using sensors is okay, you can use smart meters and connect them to a blockchain. That's possible already now, that's happening already now. But we don't have like GHG sensors or so. So we have to identify the right IoT devices to connect with, and we have to figure all of that out so that we can create a good accounting process. But I hope that will be happening in the future. That's kind of when the real magic could be happening. But I think it's already important to consider blockchain now for a post-2020 system and just try something. And I think the process layer is a gain already in terms of efficiency, and it helps us understand and educate and test and collaborate with parties so that we're not coming in at the future and saying like, we have this entirely new blockchain system and we will revolutionize everything, please trust us. But it's good to develop it together now and already like replace a component of the existing system. That's more the approach. So hope that helps. Okay, more questions. Yeah.
So my question is not skeptical about blockchain, so all the panelists can sit and relax, sit back and relax. So my name is Song, I'm from Token Market. So we are a European licensed asset tokenization platform. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Consensus conference. So this conference is more like COP in the crypto space. And I observed, really, I would say paradigm shift. A lot of institutions, Wall Street, US-based, enter the space. And also Facebook, Google, Apple, last month also released their own initiative toward blockchain, which they have been preparing this in stealth mode for last couple of years. So really, my question is not about whether blockchain or not, it's about how we can use it and when we can, help this for the carbon market. And my question is, what do you see as low-hanging fruit we can pick it up now? And Marco, you mentioned in your talk, AI and IoT will be powerful technology used for data. I pretty much agree that is quite expensive. Many people think blockchain is expensive, but that's not the truth. It was a few years ago, but now it's actually a cheap technology. And AI and IoT is more expensive. What this carbon market, can afford these technologies and where the money come, for the further development? Where are the low-hanging fruit? And then the second question I have is which jurisdictions you think would be a good country in terms of compliance, in terms of easy of moving the next generation of carbon market powered by the blockchain or distributed ledger technology, I would say. Thank you.
Okay, so I agree with you that IoT sensors are not there yet and they are quite expensive at the moment, but I think it is something that is maturing over time and there have been already quite good improvements in the technology. And if you look at the conventional systems, it's ridiculously expensive to verify and get carbon credits certified actually. You have to have third-party verifiers that are traveling all over the world and just going to the project and doing some simulations and taking data and so on. And it is a very cumbersome process with a lot of human capacity involved. And I'm, maybe not at this point, but at some point in the future, it will be able to reduce costs because IoT is just reducing in price, whereas the third-party verifiers will possibly get only more expensive or at least stay very expensive. So I think there is an easy low, or if once the maturity is reached, it's the low-hanging fruit. And I think also this process layer that I was describing earlier, that's the most straightforward application of a blockchain. And it is a nice entry point in a way. So that's also why we positioned ourselves there, that we didn't want to create an entirely new system that's totally blockchain based, but we want to use a system that is relatable for the practitioners already, and we just decided to reduce one component of this system to get some efficiency there. And I think in a lot of systems that we're talking about in general is that we are always basically discussing if we can replace a database with a blockchain, but we're not rethinking systems. And I think that will come at some point, and we have already decentralized autonomous organizations that we're talking about, where totally new governance models will develop. So that's also like a future promise of it. I don't argue that this will be applicable for the carbon market, but I think we need to, the future will be different in a way. And so, yeah, now I got lost a little bit in that. Could you, it was the jurisdiction where I see it.
Yeah, which jurisdictions? I'm where the money that come from the the tipping point for the market development next.
That's a tricky one. I don't see, or I think it is like we're talking about a global carbon market at the moment. So I mean, it needs to be. I would guess. And I'm sorry, no, I can't really answer that in a good way. I think it's it needs to be a company that's open for new technologies, that doesn't have anything against blockchain. I think there might be objections by the parties, so that's why it's important to have discussions with it. But I don't have like a specific jurisdiction I would point towards to it. I guess it would be a developing country setting, but I'm not sure. Sorry, I can't answer that.
Well, I think if you're talking about like national registries, you have to look through all the legal considerations. Each country is different, so I agree with Marco that's difficult to answer. But like, it depends on a lot of private sector companies that are looking at blockchain. They have a whole legal team, and they only work in countries where there's like legal flexibility. For us, like our main client that's working on blockchain is in the government of Chile, and they have an active again, but a pilot though, on blockchain. So I think that really depends on the country's appetite, as Marco said. But also, by the way, we might have to wrap up soon, because someone came.
I think it's all about liberalization. In the carbon market, I think the basic things, government or the international organization, they should set out the basic rule and let market freely transform in any kind of future with any kind of technology. We don't need to over-regulate. We already over-regulate for a decade. But yes, we create some critical information, critical data. But maybe right now it's time to let market freely involve based on this kind of critical data and with blockchain technology.
Thanks. Do we have a last question? Yes.
So my question is more about the cryptocurrency aspects of it. Is it not risky to hedge the state of the carbon market to the state of the cryptocurrency market, which is extremely volatile. And then on that note, why the option of going for cryptocurrency and not something more stable like a stable coin that's hedged to the value of, like, say, the US dollar or something?
Yes, I like that the cryptocurrency can flow, because once it flows, that means more people can go into it, more investors can go into it, and everybody who hold the token can share the benefit. If it become kind of a stable cryptocurrency, and nobody will have an incentive to purchase it, because I have $10, I always have $10. It won't price up, so that's why we want to use the fluctuation price, and we think. In the beginning, yes, the flow could be bigger in a big move, but maybe 1 or 2 years will gradually stable with some kind of trend. We think that market evolve by their own, and we think currently there's a hard money in the blockchain. That's why we want to attract it. Without the speculation in kind of business, it's hard to let this business become popular. That's our thinking.
Yeah, we don't apply any cryptocurrency, so it will be a currency or a token denominated in a US dollar value, and the value of this token will be then determined by the market. So we don't have this cryptocurrency uncertainty in it, but I see it as an interesting way of incentivizing actually people to spread the word and so on. But it's an experiment, and I think it sounds promising, but you don't know.
I'm from developing countries, so sorry.
Okay, with that I'd like to wrap up the session and wish you all a good lunch, and thanks for being here. I think after 3-4 days of conferencing, it's impressive to see so many enthusiastic people, so thank you for your time.